So, do you have a favorite unaired moment, a favorite memory from filming?
A favorite memory from filming. That was actually showed on the show, right?
That was not shown on the show.
That was not shown on the show. Oh my goodness. Wow, there's so many memories. Um, I mean, I think all the time that I spent with the other five leads and the producers, because we had so much off-air time, off-camera time together, so we really formed like a really tight bond. Um, but I did towards the end. The hard part about being on these shows is that you're with, your castmates for so long, but then you're only on these dates for so long, and you see the person you're dating for maybe like once every few days. So it's really hard sometimes to form that genuine connection. And so I was just bargaining a lot with the producers to be like, hey, give me more off-camera time because I'm really starting to feel feelings for this person. So I actually probably got the most off-camera time with my person that I left with. And so there were some moments that I really enjoyed that were off camera, just like, actually being able to just talk about whatever. And I feel like my storyline progressed really fast, right? Like the way things ended for me, like it was pretty abrupt maybe, but there was a lot of off camera conversations. Like there was actually a conversation that I had with Yurika, and I remember this was towards the end, and we were like thinking, okay, are we leaving, boyfriend, girlfriend? Like, what's the situation? And we were having a really good talk, and she actually brought it up that she wanted to leave as more than just boyfriend, girlfriend. And I was like, well, that's news to me. So that was like a very juicy, I felt like, part that was kind of left out of the show, but that was like, oh my god, that was a game changer because I was like, okay, like I need to start thinking bigger because I wasn't really sure, like what her thoughts were and stuff. And so after she brought that up, that kind of changed my thoughts. And I remember talking to producers like, dude, like, can we get a ring? Like, what, this is literally happening like tomorrow, like we need to, like, if we're going to do this, like we need to do it now. And I was like, oh, this is so much to like, digest. And so, yeah, that was, I think one of the big turning points and very memorable moment for me, at least, because that really affected the way I thought we were going to leave the show together.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So, the ring situation, what is that? A ring on loan? Did they buy the ring for you? Is that out of your pocket? What's the ring situation?
Yeah, so it's not on loan. It's like we own it. Like they bought it for us.
Oh, that's
We have
nice.
I think we paid tax on it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So when Eureka's like, I think maybe I want to leave as more, in your head right away, were you like, oh, good, me too? Or were you always on the same page in that way, or did you have to think about it?
Yeah, no, I was like, in my mind, I thought about it, but I wasn't sure because we were only there for like, maybe a little over a month. So I wasn't like thinking, oh, she was gonna think the same thing. Because there were times where I felt like, she wanted to take things a little bit slow. So it was kind of surprising for me to hear that. But at the same time, we were developing a lot of feelings, and we did start getting a lot of off camera time towards the end. So I can see why, like, it could just kind of accelerate to that point. Like we had a whole ass date that wasn't even showed on air. Like we
Oh,
had a
wow.
whole third date, yeah, where we're just on the couch. And there's, I think what's really interesting about our relationship is because I think our struggle that I feel like wasn't really captured on the film or on the show was that, like, we kept on hovering around the concept of like, I love you. Like we didn't want, neither of us wanted to say it too rushed. We really wanted to mean it. And I think that's something maybe about like Asian culture, both of us being Asian. We don't really grow up in an environment where we're just constantly, showered with words of affirmation, or, our parents don't say I love you all the time. Like, I think that's very common in Asian households. And I think, that's why we were kind of hovering around that word, because when we do say it, it really means a lot. And so I remember on the third date, I think the producer was kind of hoping we would say it. But, when I actually proposed, I think that's the first time you actually hear me say, I love you, I love you, I love you. But there was a scene before that we shot. After she had met Leo, we went back into our room and we actually had a really long conversation on the couch. And I remember saying these exact words. I was like, I wish I could just tell you how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm watching myself in a movie, that I'm just rooting for the person to just express and his love. And I just can't say it for some reason. And then we just like, and then we started making out, and I think we kissed. And then I looked in her eyes and I whispered, I love you. And then she whispered back, I love you too. And I think in that moment, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like this is so real. This is so like, we're having our like notebook experience right now, you know?
Wow.
And it just felt really touching. That was a very memorable moment. And that's the first time we actually said, I love you for real. And it really felt like it came from the heart. So I forgot what your question was. I started digressing, but yeah, that was a beautiful scene. I think that didn't get captured, and there's a lot that didn't show up on the film that we actually did, you know, because I maybe didn't necessarily progress my storyline in a way, or there was just so much content. Because I mean, you know, you saw the drama that was happening. I was relatively drama free. I was actually there, you know. Oh, we were actually trying to find some love. Like, there was actually some real feelings here. I wish they could have, you know, explored that a little bit more, shown the kind of the small like little things about us not expressing love right away, us kind of battling with that internally, but then finally expressing it to each other in a very like real and like honest, but almost like suppressed way. And I remember when I proposed to her, I actually told her, like, I remember the first time we said, I love you. And I just whispered it underneath my breath, because I felt like we were both a little bit scared to say it, right? Because this is like, we've been together for a month. Like, how are we just going to say, I love you? Like, I remember my first relationship for 9 years, we didn't say, I love you until like much, like maybe even a year or so down the line. And so it means so much. And I wouldn't throw that word around, but like the fact that we said it and the way I said it, it was like I was trembling under my breath because I was scared. But the way that she responded with that same type of like a little bit scared, but we wanted to say it, it just felt so real. And I remember when I was proposing, I said, I remember whispering it to you, but this time I wanted to say it so loud and so like, I want you to feel it. And I remember I said, I love you 3 times because I wanted her to know, like, I love you. And you know, I wish that was all captured a little bit better on the show, and you could have seen that. Maybe it's a little bit more Love Is Blind feel and maybe less real world feel. But you know, that was my storyline, right? A little bit more like genuine, heartfelt. And so maybe there wasn't enough the time or space to capture all that, but that was definitely there, and that was real.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, I was completely swept up in your love story. So it didn't feel shorted on this audience members, and it was a fairy tale to me. So
Well, yeah, I think from my perspective, because I've seen so much and I know all
right, you lived it.
right. So it's like, oh man, I wish you guys could have seen so much more. But yeah, I think they did capture the essence of, I think, the love story.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So people are dying to know for a status update on you and Yurika.
I don't know if I'm allowed to give that. I think
Okay.
I'm not sure if.
I have to ask, so you could say, you know.
Yeah. I don't think I'm allowed to say that yet. I haven't gotten the green light yet. But that's literally all we've been asked. I think like me and Yurika left the show probably as like the favorite couple that left together. And everyone's like been blowing up the DMs and commenting, wanting to know. And I can't wait to tell everybody like what's going on. But yeah, stay tuned. I think we're gonna make an announcement. I think it's gonna be next week, but we'll see.
Okay, exciting. Well, I mean, in this interview, it sounds like you hate her. So, you know, we'll see.
We'll see.
So, can you tell me about like the audition and casting process, what that was like for you, and how much involvement you had or knowledge you had about who would be your suitors?
Yeah. So I got reached out through Bumble first. And then the casting producer found me, and my life was very private before. I had like no like social media that was public. Everything was private, and I wasn't very much like a picture type of taking guy. Like, I'm very much just like, you know, just a low key, pretty normal person. And they reached out to me through Bumble, and then they told me about the premise. I actually got reached out to by The Bachelorette first, and then that kind of opened my mind to being like, oh, reality TV. I never really thought about that. And then this opportunity came about. I was like, oh my gosh, this premise is very like, it hits close to home for me, because I was in such a long-term relationship before for 9 years. So I was like, you know what? I do have a lot of misconnections. Let's explore that. And then so I remember going through the casting process thinking like, there's no way I'm going to get this, but I'm just going to, you know, throw my name in the hat. And I think the way they were pitching it was they were basically placing us in like pods, right? So it's like Vince and his group of girls, and that's like a pod. and then they would have a bunch of pods, and they, you know, all the casting producers would evaluate us based on us collectively. And for me, I remember they reached out to me, they asked me for like a list of girls. I probably sent them like a list of maybe like 8 people that, like, you know, I knew. None of them showed up, honestly. None of the girls that I put on the list showed up. And then they asked my friends for a list of girls. And then they went through my social media and everything, and like, you know, all my followers, and just like dug deep and started reaching out. I remember I got DMs from girls randomly. They were like, "Is this a scam? Like, what is this like dating show thing?" And so that was the way they were trying to find people. And I just remember thinking like, I don't know if you're going to find anybody that wants to date me, because if you saw me, you probably saw the photo that they posted when I was in high school, like, or college. Like, I wasn't really like a looker, you know. It's not like, oh, girls are lining up to date me, but dang, he's in a relationship. Like, it was never like that, you know. So in my mind, I'm like, I don't know if there's going to be anybody that wants to show up. Even though I would love to be on the show, I didn't think anybody would really show up for me. So when they told me, they're like, no, Vince, like, you know, we sent them your current photos and stuff, and they're like interested. I was like blushing when they would tell me this, because like I'm still getting used to the fact that, like, I guess I've glowed up and I'm more of a handsome, the heartthrob of the show. Like, for me, it's like, it blows my mind because I've never been that before. Like, I've always just been this regular dude who's like, I don't know, like, people wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, I'm going to try to date Vince. And now being in this role where I'm, you know, being pursued and I'm eliminating people, like, it's literally like I'm mind blown that that's even occurring. You know, I'm still trying to adjust to the fact that people think of me that way, because I never really looked at myself that way. You know, I started working out and getting fit for myself and like my confidence, and then, you know, all this just kind of snowballed. And so that was my experience, yeah, getting casted, I guess.
Yeah, how interesting. Okay, last question, and then I'll let you go. What dating advice do you have for people who want to rekindle things with someone from the past?
My dating advice, it's all about context, right? You're not just gonna DM somebody from 10 years and be like, hey, like, I had a crush on you, or like, hey, what's up? Like, that's just kind of weird, right? Like, you need context. And I think people could use this show as context. Be like, oh my gosh, have you seen the one that got away on Prime Video? Like, oh, you have? It's like, oh my, that's so crazy. Like, it made me think about you, you know, like remember back in high school, like, it's just like Vince and, you know, Yurika, like, holy crap. And then, you know, it's like, it brings that context in. So it doesn't make it seem like you're just cold hitting on them. You're bringing something into the conversation that naturally progresses to that. Be like, oh my gosh, like, have you ever thought about the one that got away for you? And then you know, you'd be like, yeah, I've been kind of thinking about that, and like low-key think you might be the one that kind of got away. Ha ha ha, you know, like, maybe let's grab coffee sometime. And I feel like, you know, like, you can go about it that way, because there's like, we all have changed so much. Like, for people from high school, like, you've grown so much, like who you are now, like, even if it's like an ex or someone you dated before, like, I promise you, they're probably a different person. Even though you have all these red flags that you think that, you know, this person's that way, and you don't want to give them a second chance, like, I think, will be very surprised by how much people can change. Like, I know for a fact that I've changed so much. And like, would I necessarily have dated me who I was back in high school? Maybe not, you know, because I was very naive and very immature, and I didn't have the right mindset of approaching relationships. I didn't have the experience. But knowing who I am now, like, you know, I'm so different. Like, I would definitely date me who I am now. But, you know, I think you should give that fair chance to other people too. And, you know, give them an opportunity to show that they have changed, you know, and have grown. And you might be surprised to find that, yeah, like, the person that you're supposed to be with was actually from the past. You know, like, nowadays, how else are you gonna meet people? You're just gonna meet them online, strangers, and just like, you know, try to figure out who they are, you know, and like, have these like when you, otherwise you have someone that you actually have a history with. They knew who you were in high school when you were a kid, you know, or they knew who you were in college. Like, they know a different side of you, and that's so special. Like, you know, that someone knows that version of you. They can see how you've grown, how you've work to become a better person. And there is a charm to that. There is something that's so like sweet about that you can't necessarily find through just, you know, swiping on a random face on, you know, a online dating app or something. So I think people need to change the way they're approaching dating, you know, because people are always trying to find what's new, what's fresh. And they're always saying, move forward, don't look from the past. And I get that. I get the optimism of just moving forward, not looking from the past. But a lot of times you can find things from the past that you want to move forward with. And people don't necessarily open their mind up to that. They just think like, oh, I'm just closing the chapter and I'm moving forward. It's like, no, like life is so much bigger than that. Like there's people in your circle, people in your life that, you know, don't necessarily, they didn't die when you were 18, like, but in your mind, they're like dead, you know, because you don't think about them anymore. You don't want to talk to them. It's like, no, they could, who they are, the new version of them could be someone in your future, you know, and that's something I think people should really start thinking about. And you know, they could really find the love of your life. Like, imagine if you find the love of your life because of this show. Like, can you imagine that? The possibility, just because you know, you have this context now that you can send to the person you want to reconnect with, you know, it just gives you that kind of talking point to re-spark something, to lead to a meetup at a coffee shop that could lead to more. And that possibility that somebody might be able to find love through indirectly through this show, that I think, if anything else, is the most powerful thing about this show. And that what separates this experience from any other dating show that I've ever seen before. So yeah, that's what I think.